The HOA president slammed an eviction notice onto my porch, smirking like he'd already won. "You've got 30 days to vacate," he said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I looked at the paper, then back at him, and smiled. Because that notice? It sat on land that I owned, including their boat dock. My name's Jack Warren. I've lived by the same lake my whole life. My father built this cabin with his own 2 hands back in the 50s, before this place was even called Pine Hollow. It's small, wooden, and peaceful, exactly how I like it. For decades, it was just me, a few fishermen, and the sound of crickets at night. Then came the developers. They saw the lake as a goldmine and turned the quiet shoreline into a luxury community. Within a year, the HOA was born, gated, polished, and full of people who thought they owned the world. Their president, Greg Miller, was the worst of them. Tall, slick hair, fake smile, he treated authority like oxygen. The first week after moving in, he dropped by with a clipboard. "We're organizing community standards," he said. "You'll need to repaint your cabin. It doesn't meet our color code." I stared at him. "Color code? My father built this place before you built your rules." He chuckled. "Well, rules evolve. You'll adjust." From that day on, I knew what kind of man he was. He couldn't stand that someone lived outside his control. But I wasn't about to join their HOA. This land wasn't part of their development, and I had the paperwork to prove it. Still, Greg didn't like no for an answer. And when men like him can't control you, they try to erase you. It started small, letters in my mailbox demanding I pay HOA dues. Then came warnings about unapproved landscaping. Apparently, my grass was too tall and my dock didn't fit the community aesthetic. Every week, a new threat arrived. I ignored them. One evening, I attended their public meeting, just to clear the air. Greg stood at the front, basking in his own importance. He pointed at a photo of my cabin projected behind him. "This structure," he said, "is a blight on our beautiful lake. It violates community integrity." People murmured. I stood up. "You know that property isn't yours to govern, right?" Greg smirked. "Everything inside Pine Hollow's gate falls under HOA oversight." I raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe you should check where your gate actually ends." He laughed in front of everyone. "You think some old paperwork is going to stand up against our lawyers?" I didn't answer. I just looked at the lake through the window, calm, still, quiet, and thought of my father's voice. "Don't argue with fools, son. Just make sure your foundation's stronger than theirs." Later that night, I pulled out my father's deed. The yellowed pages smelled like time itself. As I traced the survey lines, something caught my eye, a thin, shaded strip extending along the shore. I compared it to the new maps online. That strip wasn't just my dock. It included the entire section where the HOA's dock and clubhouse sat. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding slowly. They were threatening to evict me from land that I actually owned. And they had no idea. A week later, I woke to the sound of pounding on my door. Greg stood there again, clipboard in hand, 2 board members behind him. He handed me a red paper. "Final notice. You're being evicted for noncompliance." I read it carefully. "Noncompliance with what? I don't belong to your HOA." Greg crossed his arms. "You're within our boundary. The board has decided your structure violates our bylaws." I smiled, calm. "You sure about that boundary?" His jaw clenched. "You'll find out soon enough. The sheriff will be here next week." They turned and left, confident, laughing as they walked down my steps. I watched them leave, then folded the paper neatly and placed it in a drawer. That was the moment I decided to stop letting them talk and start letting facts speak. I drove into town and visited the county recorder's office. I requested every file tied to my father's land. The clerk, an old friend, brought out a stack of folders older than both of us. Inside, I found the original property plat, dated 1952, showing the full boundary before any development. And there it was again, my father's signature, marking ownership of the entire southern lakeshore, including the area where the HOA's dock and clubhouse now stood. I exhaled slowly. They'd built half their paradise on my soil. That night, I called a property lawyer named Ms. Ruiz, a calm woman with sharp eyes. When she saw the documents, she smiled faintly. "Mr. Warren, this isn't just a defense. It's checkmate." We met again the next day in her office. She spread out the maps, tapping the lakefront section. "They overbuilt right into your land. The HOA technically owes you years of rent and damages." I nodded slowly. "Let's make sure they find that out the hard way." Ms. Ruiz drafted a cease and desist letter citing property encroachment and trespass. But instead of sending it right away, she told me, "Let's wait for their next meeting. People like this need an audience when they lose." Perfect. 2 weeks later, the HOA sent another notice announcing an eviction vote, a full community meeting to finalize my removal. Greg probably imagined it as his big victory speech. I showed up late, just as he was saying, "This board has voted unanimously to evict Mr. Warren for violating HOA residency standards." People clapped politely. Then I stepped up to the front with a folder in hand. "Before you finish that vote, Greg, you might want to review some paperwork." The room went quiet. I laid out the old survey map on the table. County seal, signatures, coordinates, all there. "This," I said, "is my family's original deed from 1952. And it shows that everything from the cabin," I drew my finger across the map, "to this dock, your clubhouse, and the entire shoreline, belongs to me." Murmurs erupted. Greg's face flushed red. "That's impossible." Ms. Ruiz, who had quietly entered behind me, spoke up. "Actually, it's not. I confirmed it with the county recorder's office. You've been operating on Mr. Warren's land for 5 years. Gasps. A few people even laughed nervously. I leaned in. "You tried to evict me, Greg. But the truth is, you've been trespassing on my property this whole time." The room exploded in chaos. HOA members argued, shouting over each other. Greg tried to call for order, banging his fist on the table. "You can't come in here making claims," he barked. Ms. Ruiz handed him an envelope. "Then you'll love this. It's a legal notice demanding immediate cessation of all HOA activity on Mr. Warren's land. You have 30 days to vacate the dock and clubhouse or face a lawsuit for damages." He snatched the paper. "You're bluffing." I crossed my arms. "You said the sheriff would be here to evict me, right? Maybe he should come back and help you pack." Laughter broke out in the room. The board members looked stunned. Greg turned to his own lawyer, who had been silent until now. The man whispered something in his ear. Greg's face drained of color. He turned back, voice shaking. We can resolve this." I stepped closer, calm. "Oh, we will. But not the way you think." Ms. Ruiz added, "You'll also be responsible for back rent, 5 years of unauthorized use. We're calculating that at about $25,000 per year." A woman from the crowd gasped. "That's over $100,000. Greg slammed the table. "This is extortion." "No," Ms. Ruiz said, "this is ownership." I picked up my papers and nodded politely to the room. Meeting adjourned. As I walked out, the sound of arguing echoed behind me, Greg shouting, members accusing him of lying, the illusion of control crumbling. That night, I sat on my porch watching the moon ripple across the lake. The same lake they thought they owned. By morning, the entire community knew. The local paper ran a headline, "HOA built dock and clubhouse on private property." Greg's phone must have been ringing nonstop. A week later, he resigned. 2 board members followed. Within a month, the HOA's lawyer contacted Ms. Ruiz to negotiate. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. So I proposed something simple. They could lease the dock, legally this time, for a modest monthly fee. Half of it would go to lake conservation. For the first time, Greg didn't argue. The following summer, the lake felt different. Quieter. Happier. The HOA rebuilt its reputation under new leadership. They paid their lease on time. They even helped repaint my father's old dock, no longer pretending it was theirs. Neighbors started waving again, stopping by with coffee or pie. "Didn't realize you owned all this," one said sheepishly. I smiled. Neither did they. Greg moved out that fall. Rumor had it he tried starting another HOA across town, but let's just say the county made sure to double-check his property lines first. I added a new sign to the dock: private property, access by permission only. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. One afternoon, I stood by the water, listening to the soft hum of boats in the distance. For the first time in years, the place felt like my father's lake again. Peaceful. Honest. Free. My narration closed the story in my mind. They tried to erase history with paperwork. But some roots run deeper than ink. This land belonged to my family before they had maps for it, and it'll still be ours long after their rules fade. I cast a line into the still water, the ripples stretching across the same dock that nearly cost me everything. And for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at home. Power doesn't come from titles or rules. It comes from knowing who you are and where you stand. The HOA tried to evict me from my home, but they forgot something simple: you can't evict the landowner. They built arrogance on my soil, and I didn't need anger to knock it down. Just patience and the truth. So next time someone waves authority in your face, remember this: if your roots are deep enough, no storm can move you.